Meghan's broke, the marriage is sick, and Harry only knows self-service. She certainly did need to walk away with it because she doesn't have any money. Those shocking words from Lady Colin Campbell in early December 2024, speaking from her recovery bed after breaking her pelvis in a fall at London's Soho Hotel, crystallized what many had suspected but few had stated so bluntly. Meghan Markle kept that $1,700 green Galvan dress from the 2022 Variety photoshoot because she's broke. The woman who supposedly lives in a $29 million Montecito mansion with her multi-millionaire royal husband doesn't actually have money of her own. The mansion, according to Lady Colin's sources, is likely owned by a mystery benefactor, possibly Victoria Jackson, the cosmetics tycoon who has been lending properties and private jets to the Sussexes for years. And the actual liquid assets Harry and Meghan have access to, the money they can actually spend, amounts to only $11 to $13 million floating around from entity to entity. As Lady Colin explained, that's not a great deal of money to be having as a float for the size life that they have. But the dress theft was just one symptom of a much larger pathology. According to Lady Colin, who has known the royal family for decades and written authoritative biographies of multiple family members, the Sussex marriage is toxic, nasty, opportunistic, vicious, and really rather sick. It's a relationship built on Meghan mimicking Diana to press Harry's psychological buttons, keeping him tame and under her control through calculated manipulation of his unresolved mother issues. And the only form of service either of them understands, Lady Colin concluded with devastating precision, is self-service. Join us as we uncover Lady Colin Campbell's brutal assessment of Dressgate, why Meghan and Harry are actually broke despite appearing wealthy, and what the prediction that their toxic marriage might last a lifetime reveals about the sick dynamics keeping them together. It all began when host Kevin O'Sullivan introduced the Dressgate scandal to Lady Colin Campbell, explaining how Meghan had worn the same green Galvan dress in her Netflix holiday special trailer that she had worn for the October 2022 Variety magazine cover shoot. The dress was distinctive and expensive, a sleeveless, floor-length emerald green gown worth $1,695. Fashion observers had immediately recognized it when it appeared in the With Love Meghan trailer released in late November 2024, 3 years after the original Variety shoot. The question was obvious. Where did Meghan get the dress? Had she purchased it after the photo shoot? Had there been an arrangement for her to keep it as part of her compensation? Or had she simply taken it without paying, assuming she was entitled to free designer clothing? When Page Six and other outlets began reporting that Meghan had kept the dress without authorization, her spokesperson responded with the now familiar pattern of threats and denials. The statement claimed that any items kept were done so in total transparency and in accordance with contractual arrangements, and warned that allegations of theft were highly defamatory. But the explanation that followed was even more bizarre. Sources close to Meghan claimed she had kept the dress to prevent it from being sold on unauthorized resale channels by people involved in the photoshoot. She was, supposedly, protecting the dress from being illicitly sold to memorabilia hunters. As O'Sullivan summarized for Lady Colin, she says, or her people say, absolutely no way was this theft or anything like that. It was contractual. People knew what she was doing. And also, as a royal, she has to archive her clothes. I don't know what the hell that means, but that's what she said. Lady Colin's response cut through the obfuscation with brutal clarity. The relationship between Meghan's dress theft and her actual financial situation revealed something fundamental that mainstream media refused to acknowledge. Despite all appearances of wealth, Meghan and Harry are essentially broke. First of all, she certainly did need to walk away with it because she doesn't have any money, Lady Colin stated flatly. The assertion seems shocking given the constant media references to the Sussexes' lavish Montecito lifestyle, their supposed multi-million-dollar Netflix and Spotify deals, Harry's inheritance from Diana and the Queen Mother. How could someone living in a $29 million mansion with supposed access to tens of millions of dollars from commercial deals be broke? Lady Colin explained the reality behind the facade. The $29 million house that she lives in with her multi-million-dollar husband, he doesn't have anything like the money that people think he has. People think he's immensely wealthy. He's not, she continued. And as for that $29 million house, I would be very surprised if that house is actually in their name. I think that's probably in somebody else's name, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's in Victoria Jackson's name. The reference to Victoria Jackson was significant. Multiple reports from late 2024 had identified Jackson, a cosmetics industry veteran, as the mystery benefactor lending properties and private jets to Harry and Meghan. The Sussexes had stayed at Jackson's New York City brownstone, her Beverly Hills mansion, and reportedly her Montecito estate. They had used her Falcon private jet for trips, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in aviation costs. But if Jackson owned the Montecito mansion and was simply letting Harry and Meghan live there, that fundamentally changed the financial picture. They weren't $29 million mansion owners. They were tenants, dependent on a wealthy patron's continued generosity. Lady Colin then addressed the actual liquid assets Harry and Meghan had access to. They live a life on credit because their actual resources, I am reliably informed, is somewhere between $11 and $13 million that they float around from entity to entity. The phrase float around from entity to entity suggested complex financial structures, possibly involving multiple companies, trusts, or foundations through which money moved. Archwell Foundation, Archwell Productions, various production companies, merchandise ventures, all of them potentially serving as vehicles for managing limited actual capital. That's not a great deal of money to be having as a float for the size life that they have, Lady Colin concluded. The assessment was devastating because it was accurate. $11 to $13 million sounds like enormous wealth to ordinary people. But for someone trying to maintain a lifestyle involving private jets, designer clothing, extensive security, staff salaries, luxury properties, and constant travel, it's actually quite limited. Consider the mathematics. If they spent $2 million annually on security alone, as multiple reports suggested, that would consume 15% of their entire capital in just 1 year. Add in property expenses, staff costs, travel, clothing, entertainment, business expenses, and the $13 million becomes inadequate remarkably quickly. The turning point that made Lady Colin's financial assessment even more credible came from her observation about what Meghan's dress theft revealed about their actual desperation. So yes, of course she took it, Lady Colin stated matter-of-factly. And yes, of course, all the nonsense about how it was above board is twaddle. The word twaddle perfectly captured Lady Colin's dismissal of Meghan's elaborate explanations about contractual arrangements and archiving requirements and preventing unauthorized resales. None of it was true. Meghan took the dress because she wanted it and couldn't afford to pay for it, so she invented justifications after being caught. But Lady Colin went further, addressing what the dress theft revealed about Meghan's character. This woman is somebody who feels entitled to take what she wants. She feels she has a right to anything that crosses her path because in her mind, she deserves it. The entitlement wasn't limited to designer dresses. It extended to royal titles without royal obligations, to commercial exploitation of royal connections while attacking the institution, to demanding special treatment while claiming to want privacy, to using her children as props while pretending to protect them. She is somebody whose sense of entitlement is absolutely mind-boggling, Lady Colin continued. And Harry has become the same way because she has educated him in the art of entitlement. This was crucial. Harry hadn't always been this way. Before Meghan, despite his party boy reputation and occasional scandals, Harry had understood service. He had served in the military. He had founded the Invictus Games for wounded veterans. He had done genuine charity work that actually helped people rather than just generating publicity for himself. But Meghan had changed him fundamentally. As Lady Colin observed with devastating precision, Harry was very good at getting up and performing as the cheeky chappy, and he could be very cooperative and very personable and very friendly until Meghan came along and put him in touch with his misery. The phrase "put him in touch with his misery" captured something essential about Meghan's psychological manipulation of Harry. She didn't make him happy. She made him aware of grievances, resentments, victimhood narratives. She transformed him from someone who found purpose through military service and charitable work into someone who spent his time airing complaints and demanding apologies. Since when, He and she have shown that the only service they understand is self-service, Lady Colin concluded. The double meaning was perfect. Self-service as in serving themselves rather than others, but also self-service as the British term for pumping your own gas, suggesting they were low-rent operators pretending to be high class. But while the dress theft and financial desperation were damning, Lady Colin's most devastating assessment concerned the Sussex marriage itself and why it might actually last despite being profoundly dysfunctional. The contrast between how Meghan talked about the relationship and what Lady Colin observed revealed the sick dynamics keeping them together. O'Sullivan referenced Meghan's recent Harper's Bazaar interview, where she had gone on at length about Harry's love for her. She went on about, "No one loves me as much as Harry. No one in the world loves me more. His love for me is bold. He loves me so much. And so I know he's always going to have my back. He so loves me." Not a single sentence about whether or not she loves him. The one-sided nature of Meghan's declarations was striking. Everything was about what Harry felt for her, what Harry did for her, how Harry supported her. Nothing about what she felt for him, what she gave to the relationship, how she made him happy. Lady Colin's assessment was clinical. That, of course, is typical narcissist talk, but it also is somebody who knows that the guilt is off the lily and she needs to try to restore it, because half of their business model is "we are Romeo and Juliet." The reference to their business model was crucial. Harry and Meghan's commercial value depended on selling themselves as a great love story. Star-crossed lovers who defied the evil royal family to be together. If that narrative collapsed, if people saw them as a miserable couple trapped in a dysfunctional relationship, their entire commercial brand would evaporate. Of course, we know that they are not Romeo and Juliet, Lady Colin continued. So I think it's yet another sleight of hand, and Meghan is very adept at sleight of hand, and Harry has become rather more adept at sleight of hand than he used to be. I think he's actually been a very good pupil. But when O'Sullivan asked whether the marriage would last, Lady Colin's answer was shocking in its implications. When people say they are sure they will separate and divorce, I've always said I'm not sure they ever will, Lady Colin stated. I've seen other marriages like theirs which lasted a lifetime. Toxic, nasty, opportunistic, vicious, rarely sick relationships that lasted a lifetime because the vulture in the relationship never found someone else to be richer picking. The word choice was brutal but precise. Vulture suggested someone who feeds on the dead or dying, and in Lady Colin's assessment, that's exactly what Meghan was doing. Feeding on Harry's royal status, his inherited wealth, his damaged psychology, his need for maternal validation. For Meghan, Harry's ideal because, he worships at her altar, does everything she says. So she's in charge, and she likes that dynamic, O'Sullivan observed. But Lady Colin went deeper into the psychological mechanics keeping them together. I think she gives him stuff that he needs and that he wants. I mean, she has maintained the fiction and the act that she is an evocation of his mother, and she mimics his mother in ways. It's a way of pressing his buttons and keeping him tame and keeping her toehold over him. This was the sick core of their relationship. Meghan wasn't Harry's partner or wife in any healthy sense. She was performing his dead mother, deliberately recreating Diana's mannerisms, poses, speaking patterns, and behaviors to manipulate Harry's unresolved grief and trauma. The Harper's Bazaar photoshoot that had been widely discussed the previous week provided visual evidence of this manipulation. Meghan had recreated specific Diana poses from the 1980s and 90s, the sitting position with legs tucked to one side, the hand touching the chest, the downward gaze with eyes looking up through lashes, even the specific tilt of the head. As O'Sullivan noted, this photoshoot she did for Harper's Bazaar magazine, all these poses, it's uncanny. It's recreating the poses that Diana created during her days while she was still with us, definitely recreating the poses of Diana. Lady Colin's assessment of this behavior was unsparing, so there is something odd about this that somehow or other she seems to try to be Harry's mom. Very, very odd. The word odd was understated given the psychological implications. What Lady Colin was describing was a form of manipulation so calculated, so intimate, so psychologically invasive that it bordered on abuse. Meghan was exploiting Harry's deepest trauma, his unresolved mother loss, by literally performing his dead mother to keep him under control. So I think this is a relationship that, on several different levels, is, shall we say, opportunistic and Machiavellian, and in my opinion, really rather sick, Lady Colin concluded. The ethical aspects of it are very disconcerting. The phrase ethical aspects suggested behavior that wasn't just manipulative but morally wrong, using someone's dead mother, mimicking her to exploit unresolved grief, pressing psychological buttons to maintain control. All of it constituted a form of emotional abuse that no healthy relationship could sustain. Yet paradoxically, this sick dynamic might be exactly what keeps them together. Harry gets someone who performs his mother, giving him a twisted form of the maternal validation he never received. Meghan gets someone who worships her, follows her instructions, provides royal status and inherited wealth. Both get a business partner for their commercial ventures, someone to validate their victimhood narratives, a co-conspirator in their war against the royal family. The legacy of Lady Colin Campbell's assessment will be measured not in dress scandals or financial revelations, but in the complete exposure of what the Sussex marriage actually is beneath the Romeo and Juliet performance. First, there's the financial reality that destroys the image of wealthy independence. They're not $29 million mansion owners with unlimited resources. They're tenants dependent on wealthy benefactors, floating $11 to $13 million around various entities, living on credit while maintaining appearances of wealth they don't actually possess. Second, there's the dress theft as symptom of deeper entitlement and desperation. Meghan didn't keep that $1,700 dress because of contractual arrangements or archiving requirements. She kept it because she wanted it, felt entitled to it, and couldn't afford to pay for it. The elaborate justifications were twaddle, invented to explain away behavior that revealed her actual financial situation. Third, there's the transformation of Harry from cheeky chappy who understood genuine service into someone who only knows self-service. Meghan didn't elevate Harry or help him find purpose. She put him in touch with his misery, teaching him entitlement, grievance, and commercial exploitation while destroying his military connections and genuine charitable work. Fourth, there's the revelation that their entire business model depends on performing a great love story they don't actually have. Half their commercial value comes from being Romeo and Juliet, the couple who defied the evil institution to be together. When that narrative collapses, when people see the toxic, opportunistic reality, their commercial brand evaporates. Fifth, there's the sick psychological dynamic of Meghan performing Diana to manipulate Harry. The mimicry isn't admiration or inspiration. It's calculated button-pushing, exploiting his deepest trauma to keep him tame and under her control. The Harper's Bazaar poses recreating Diana's exact positions provide visual evidence of manipulation so intimate it borders on abuse. Sixth, there's the prediction that the marriage might last a lifetime precisely because it's so toxic. Other marriages like theirs, nasty, opportunistic, vicious, rarely sick relationships, have lasted because the vulture never found richer picking. Meghan won't leave Harry as long as he provides royal status, inherited wealth, and worshipful obedience. Harry won't leave Meghan as long as she performs his mother and validates his victimhood. Seventh, there's Lady Colin's personal credibility lending weight to these assessments. She was speaking from her recovery bed, unable to walk for months after breaking her pelvis in a fall at the Soho Hotel. She had no commercial reason to appear on the show or discuss the Sussexes. She did so because she has decades of royal family knowledge, has written authoritative biographies, and believes the truth about Harry and Meghan needs to be told. Even in Lady Colin's careful word choices, even in her clinical assessment of sick relationship dynamics, even in her prediction of toxic marriage lasting a lifetime, the voice that emerges is authoritative, experienced, utterly credible. The story of Dressgate and Lady Colin's brutal assessment is ultimately about the difference between appearance and reality, between performed love and actual dysfunction, between wealth that's real and wealth that's maintained through credit and wealthy patrons. Meghan and Harry perform wealth with their $29 million mansion and designer clothing and private jet travel. The reality is $11 to $13 million floating around various entities, borrowed properties from mystery benefactors, and keeping $1,700 dresses because paying for them would strain limited resources. They perform great love with their Romeo and Juliet narrative and Meghan's declarations about how much Harry adores her. The reality is toxic, opportunistic, sick dynamics where she manipulates him through Diana mimicry and he worships at her altar while both understand only self-service. They perform independence and success with their Netflix shows and commercial ventures and Archwell Foundation. The reality is complete dependence on royal connection for any commercial value, failed deals terminated by frustrated partners, and charitable work that's performance rather than genuine service. And they perform happiness with carefully staged photographs and curated social media posts and occasional public appearances. The reality is Harry's visible misery in every candid shot, Meghan's desperate attempts to redirect attention from ongoing scandals, and a relationship that might last a lifetime not because it's good but because the vulture hasn't found richer picking. Lady Colin Campbell, speaking with the authority of decades observing royal families and toxic marriages, has provided the most devastating assessment of the Sussexes yet. Not through screaming or hysteria or unsubstantiated accusations, but through calm, clinical observation of financial realities, psychological manipulation, and sick relationship dynamics that exploit unresolved trauma for control. What do you think? Is Lady Colin right that they're actually broke despite appearing wealthy? Does Meghan's Diana mimicry constitute psychological abuse of Harry's unresolved mother issues? And will their toxic marriage last a lifetime because the vulture hasn't found richer picking? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this analysis valuable, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth reporting on the stories that expose the truth behind carefully performed facades. Because sometimes the most devastating revelations don't come from scandals or leaked documents. They come from someone with decades of experience speaking calmly from a recovery bed about financial realities everyone can see if they look closely. Psychological manipulation, everyone can observe if they pay attention. And toxic relationship dynamics, everyone recognizes once they're named explicitly. Lady Colin Campbell has done exactly that. Named what everyone suspected but few dared say. The Sussexes are broke, their marriage is sick, and the only service they understand is self-service. Everything else is performance, sleight of hand, twaddle designed to maintain appearances that don't match reality.